is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Hey, good afternoon. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. Well, how is everybody doing out there? It rained. I think that's what it did all morning. Maybe the weekend will look up. We don't have the traffic and weather every 4 minutes here, but we'll get some later. Shane, is the weather going to get better? No. Oh, well, you heard. Blame Shane. That's why I asked you. I didn't want to give the actual report. See, the messenger gets shot. The baby gets thrown out with the bathwater, all those good things. 540-0580 if you want your legal questions answered here on the air. And we'll do it. Supreme Court, what have they been up to? Well, they're kind of out of session right now, but they're still doing some things. They okayed the early release of 10,000 California inmates by year's end to end overcrowding in California, even though the governor was asking not to let them out. They have huge problems in California. In fact, I love this article popped up, and you can see how they have them bunked. They've basically taken every bit of free space available in their jails and crammed people into them. Because that's what you got to do in modern America, the freest country on earth. You got to lock everybody up. And if you can build a really good surveillance state, it'll be easier in the future. Supreme Court, baby Veronica to return to adoptive parents. There's a big fight going on. Dispute who should get permanent custody of a 3-year-old child known as baby Veronica. Her biological father, the adoptive couple selected by the birth mother. And it involves state law and... High Court's refusal to take up a case opens the way for the girl's transfer from her father in Oklahoma to the adoptive couple in South Carolina. And it has a lot to do with constitutionality of custody, etc. So apparently they're not going to intervene on that. And if you want more details, I'll be happy to talk to you about it on the air. What else do I know? Pretty soon the Supreme Court's going to decide if CEOs, meaning chief executive officers, can impose their religious convictions on the people who work for them. Basically, can a company, how would we say this? Last Friday, the Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals upheld the contraceptive mandate, rejecting challenge from Pennsylvania-based cabinet maker, claimed that as a Mennonite, he should not be compelled to provide contraceptive coverage to his 950 employees because the mandate violates the company's rights under Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment Religious Restoration Act. So that's going to go to the Supreme Court, probably. So we'll find out whether or not an employer, when they say mandate the religious views, basically saying you have to accept a health plan that fits our religious views or other plan. And, of course, we've had people call in here, which I think is interesting, about mandatory vaccination. And that's the idea that your employer can say, we want everybody to get the flu vaccine or we're going to fire you. Now, I believe that individual, when he called, indicated his employer was setting up a conscientious objector type standard where if you could prove to a ombudsman that you had a long-standing religious basis not to get immunized, that they would exempt you. And I think that's how they intend to skirt around the religious issues, thus saying that if it's a true religious issue for you, then we won't make you do it. You may say, what's a true religious issue? I mean, let's think about this. Say I haven't been to church in, 57 weeks. And I get drafted, and I suddenly become a conscientious objector. I did once go to a Quaker Brothers meeting, and sit there for a while. So maybe I could claim that I'm a conscientious objector. And I guess at some point we have to get into your head and determine whether you're really a religious person or not. And that makes me chuckle a little bit, because think about this. Is he really a religious person or not? Well, he goes to church every day, and he sneaks a little hooch from a flask once in a while, even though his church doesn't believe in alcohol, and he cheats on his wife occasionally, but he goes to church all the time, so he must be really religious. I just not exactly sure how you figure out if somebody truly believes what they say they believe. 540-0580. Jay, you're on the air.
Hi, Carl. Caught me quickly. I'm just listening real quickly to what you have to say. I don't know. I mean, where does talk about vaccinations? Where does that have any basis in any religion? Where's the prohibition that God has against vaccination?
Well, I mean, I could be a little cynical and say that people find prohibitions or or exhumations towards something in whatever they read. It just depends on how they want to interpret it. I know that, for instance, Jehovah's Witnesses will claim no blood products, right? And I know that some people claim a religious basis to use prayer and faith as opposed to modern medicine. I do find it interesting that people live longer statistically, so either God wanted us to discover medicine or it works despite him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would think that, I guess, can't they... I've never understood the inflexibility of our health insurance system in some ways. For instance, I know I'm with I was with the federal government, so I hang on to my benefits. I mean, I pay for them, but I don't want any of the folks calling in and thinking I get a free ride. But the point is, with all the millions of people on that plan, they seem to think they're incapable, for instance, of charging me less because I don't smoke, right, or charging me more because I'm overweight or for whatever. Like I ask that question and I hear things like it's illegal.
Well, it's not discriminating on a suspect class. I think that's always the issue. So if I say, for instance, and this will be interesting, we're not going to cover you if you're prone to sickle cell anemia. Well, we couldn't probably do that because that has a racial bias to it because sickle cell disproportionately affects African Americans, okay? And it has to do with the fact that sickle cell happens to confer a partial immunity against malaria. So while it wouldn't usually be a favorable trait in certain areas of the world, it's become a favorable trait in order to prevent the malarial infections. So anyhow, long story short, it would be a de facto form of discrimination. But if, on the other hand, I just simply said you can't be on the health insurance if you're, fill in the blank, a smoker.
Which is a choice that you make. I mean,
right.
I know I was addicted for 30 years, but it's a choice.
Right, and so by making a difference based on a choice rather than a innate feature, but even innate features can be okay as long as they don't overtly discriminate, and even if they discriminate to some extent, there's a heightened scrutiny standard for it, but nonetheless, it's possible to discriminate. So, for instance, when's the last time a woman was required to sign up for the Selective Service? Yep, never.
Yeah.
Although they can have combat roles now.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, but what I think, of course, that Selective Service Act is still there, but since it's sort of moribund, I wondered today if they reinstituted the draft, if there would be enough political impetus. I doubt it in America, but I wonder if there would be impetus there to draft women.
Right.
Or somebody could bring suit, a man maybe, I don't know, to bring suit and say, how come women are exempt?
Well, historically that hasn't gone very far, and that's because society has accepted the notion that men are for combat and women are best at home doing all the work that the men claim that women can't do when they're not there.
Well, I would be interested. I won't keep you any longer. I think I sent you something on Facebook.
Yes.
I thought that was very interesting, but I got a feeling there was more there than meets the eye because we can't talk about it on the air because people aren't aware of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I may bring it up here after the break.
Offline, at some point, I'd love to hear what you think about it. But,
all right, my friend.
All right, take care.
Thank you. And as always, folks, if you friend me on Facebook, of course, you can do just what Jay did and send me a private message with a link to something he wanted me to read and discuss. 540-0580. I get back from the break. I'll talk to you some more. Well, I'm back. Carl Rumminger here, 540-0580. Going to answer your legal questions here. So call in with them. Oh, boy. So I'm going to tell you about a new beer outlet in Annville, Pennsylvania. It's Big Mike's Beer Outlet. It's at 1455 East Main Street, Annville, PA. I'm going to be the official spokesperson for beer, Shane. I think this is... If I can get whiskey as a sponsor... and maybe good red wine as a sponsor. So if you're good red wine or whiskey, give us a call. But Big Mike's Beer Outlet, 1455 East Main Street, Annville, PA. And of course, I'm not being disloyal. Don't also forget about Harrisburg Beer and Cigar. And I'm going to talk about an event barbecue going on there a little bit later. Mark August 31st in your calendar if you think about it. Also want to remind you, if you need to liquidate an estate or business, I recommend you call RJ Gold Auctions. He can buy outright or sell your items at auction. RJ Gold can be reached at 645-0061. He purchases outright items such as medals, pins, patches, tokens, awards, badges, and most historical collectibles. He can pay you right away. RJ Gold, 645-0061, 3712 North 6th Street, Harrisburg. Plan to attend RJ's awesome auction Sunday, August 25th, 1 p.m. at the American Legion in Harrisburg. Again, that's RJ Gold, 645-0061, and he's got an awesome auction on August 25th at 1 p.m. American Legion in Harrisburg. PA license auctioneer AU005798. And we'll do some more live reads and things later. Gene, you have a question?
Yes, good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I have actually two questions concerning unclaimed property.
Okay.
The one is not complicated, the other one is. On the list of unclaimed property is my brother's name, who passed away in 2009.
Okay.
Now, I do not have his original Social Security card that's signed and has his Social Security number on. I do not have a copy or his driver's license with our childhood home address on, which is the address that's listed on this unclaimed property.
Yep.
What I do have is his DD-214.
Okay.
And that has everything on. It has the childhood address, his signature, and his Social Security number. Would that be, and I also have his original death certificate. Would those two items be adequate to claim the property?
I don't know the answer to that, but the answer is it's very easy. You're going to claim it from who? The Department of State?
Yes. It's on the
website.
On the Pennsylvania unclaimed property.
It seems like it would be enough to claim it. That said, did anybody ever open an estate for him?
No. He had a heart attack, and I was contacted, and I signed the form, a surrogate acceptance of responsibility form.
Right, but there was never never an estate.
No, he passed away, and I, as the older sister, handled the funeral and went to the VA and got his marker and everything taken care of. And I don't have any of those documents. Unfortunately, his ex-wife, by mistake, got to the information before I did.
Gotcha.
But I just wondered if that's enough documents. It's a life insurance policy that our parents took out on us as children.
Uh-huh.
And
well, the short answer is I would check with the Department of State and see if that's sufficient for their purposes.
Okay.
I can't tell you exactly what they're going to want. It seems to me they do want a death certificate, and it seems a lot of times they want an affidavit that there was no estate opened that you're aware of, I believe.
Okay.
Because if there's an estate open, then that's who would be properly claiming the assets belonging to him, okay? So under the fiduciary's code, there's the ability to get small amounts of money or things when there's without an estate.
Yeah.
So,
well, it is a small amount.
Yeah. So I would check with them. I think that's the easiest answer. And, of course, just let me broaden this a little bit. What I always tell people, and I like to make fun of the bureaucrats, right? The easiest way to find out what they want is to ask them. Make them tell you first. That doesn't guarantee success either, by the way. Mm-hmm. We've had many instances where they tell us, give us A, B, and C. You send them A, B, and C, and they send it back to you and say, well, we need D, too. And you're like, but you didn't say you needed D. But it doesn't matter because sometimes it's not the same person. Sometimes the person you talked to didn't know. But as a general rule, they'll know exactly what you need. And then you have to make the decision sometimes. Sounds like you kind of already have some stuff. Sometimes retrieving the materials you need to make the claim are greater than the claim itself.
Yes.
But it sounds like you're onto something there.
Okay. Well, my son is also on the list. He had some items that were burglarized. They arrested the person who did it, and the person had to make restitution. So now the restitution is on the unclaimed property. He bought a home. He moved away from that address. He has no proof that he lived there because he doesn't have any old driver's license. He was renting. But how can he prove that he lived at that residence
Well,
that's listed on the unclaimed property?
right. How can you prove he lived at that residence? Some proof? Did he ever get a bill or anything there?
Well, I'm sure he didn't keep it. I mean, this was probably...
the only other way to do it would be by
15 or 20
affidavit or
years ago.
court order.
Oh.
You know, take a swearing out, basically. And if he's believed... now, why would he have lived in that area? Is there other supporting documentation? I mean, why did he live where he lived?
Oh, he was renting a property.
Right, but I mean, did he go to school there? Did he
No.
work nearby? Or
Well, yes.
I'll give you an example. PennDOT will, if a person claims not to have driven during a time period of a suspension, but they weren't properly credited, you can get an administrative hearing. And one of the things that PennDOT will say is, well, you're claiming your license was lost in the mail somewhere and you surrendered it. But let's find out if you were actually driving during that period or not, and then we'll decide what we're going to do. And so they'll take, for instance, the fact that you owned a bus pass as evidence that you probably weren't actually driving, okay? So if you have a year-round bus pass in the city of Pittsburgh, it seems plausible you're taking the bus. People with cars usually don't have bus passes. But it doesn't conclusively prove you didn't drive. Well, the same idea here may apply, which is to argue, okay, I can't prove that I lived in that exact house at that exact moment, but I can put myself pretty close. You know, I went to this church, which is 2 blocks away, and I worked at this other location, and that's why I live there. See what I mean? If you can have some circumstantial evidence to try to pin it down, then a fact finder ultimately could find that those things were in fact his. Also, the items, any special item, I mean, any connection, any way to claim, you know, that was my Louisville Slugger they took, or...
Oh, no, this was, his car was broken into, and they removed the speakers and all the electronics out of his car that related to his stereo and stuff. And they had to make restitution, and that's what it is. That's what the unclaimed property is, the restitution.
Right.
But he just discovered this. He didn't know it was there.
All right, how much money are we talking about again?
I don't know what that total is.
And actually, if he was the victim at the time, nobody ever contacted him at the time for a report of what was stolen, etc.? I mean, the police department should have records, right?
Yes, they should.
So that would be the other place to go to prove that these were his things that were taken. So.
Oh, okay. So.
Or the courthouse with the criminal complaint that the restitution's based on. He's probably named as a victim in there.
Yes, well, it was Cumberland County. He lived in New Cumberland at the time it was stolen, but he was living in Enola at the time that restitution was supposed to be paid. But he had already moved from Enola to Edders. So now
I would go to the courthouse. I think that'd be the best place to start getting documentation then.
Okay.
All right.
All right. That answers that. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem. I had to think about it for a while. It just came to me.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. 540-0580. Answer to legal questions. Don't forget about CDL Labor Logistics. They're seeking experienced, qualified commercial drivers with clean records for long-term, high-paying driving positions, both local and regional in PA, Maryland, New York, New Jersey, and more. And they say this is no-touch work. Pays big. 866-293-1880. That's CDL Labor Logistics. Peter, you're on the air.
Oh, hey, Carl. Thank you for taking my call.
No problem.
Hey, Carl, question. Just had a routine bankruptcy question regarding Chapter 7 there and auto loans there. A couple of years ago, a friend of mine, declared bankruptcy, and they basically signed something where something about where they could keep the car. And it was a Chapter 7, but I guess it was called a reaffirmation of something.
Right. After you can go bankrupt, but then you can reaffirm debts.
Yeah, I guess my question is if they no longer want the car, basically, and if they stop making payments, I mean, does that affect the credit report?
Yes, because they reaffirmed the debt, so now it's their debt again.
Okay, so now just by making payments, is that helping the credit report?
Yes.
Can you make payments on that?
Yes. In other words, one of the benefits of reaffirmation generally is, even though you've just gone bankrupt, you're sort of telling creditors, by the way, if I do go bankrupt, I might actually continue to make some of my payments, and look, I'm continuing to make them in a timely fashion.
Okay, and now if they stop making payments, then
it's going to affect it. It's just like not making your payments again.
Okay, so
those are normal payments.
Okay, even if it was already on the bankruptcy.
Well, once you've reaffirmed the debt, okay, that's after discharge, you said, I'm going to reaffirm this debt. It's not like, I'm just going to turn it off like a faucet. You're right back to as if you'd bought the car in the first instance. You're right back to where you were in the beginning.
Oh, okay, and they would just repossess the car.
Yep, and then that would go as a black mark on their credit. Then it'd look like a bankruptcy, and then a no pay, and then a repo.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Not a problem, boss. 540-058. I want to get back from the break. We'll talk with Julie about estate issues, and maybe talk a little bit about the Bob Durgan retirement show yesterday, which was a great honor to be a part of. I'll see you guys in a minute.
On the phone. He's here.
This is Carl Rominger.
Carl Rominger.
Hey.
Criminal defense attorney extraordinaire.
It's from yesterday.
Well, I heard Madonna complaining about how you call with 5 minutes to spare, and I said, at least it gives you 5.
That's true. I whenever things come up spontaneously when I'm on the air, legal questions and whatnot, so I'll ask Art, give Carl a call, see if he can come on. Sometimes he can come on right away. Other times we have to wait for an hour, which is okay. We excuse him for that. I know you have to. You're busy in court.
Judges, clients, you know.
Yeah. But Carl, when did I start interviewing?
Oh my gosh, I was back before 2000.
I forget how I hooked up with Carl, but I needed a lawyer. And I forget how your name came up. I guess you were in a news story or something.
I think of what some lazy lawyer didn't want to do it, who told another lawyer, who gave my name to you or something.
So I get Carl on the air for the first time, and he was great. I mean, obviously he knows the law, but beyond that, he has some personality, and he's forceful, and he's opinionated, and all of those things, which is great.
Opinionated.
So I kept asking him back, and then one day, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, bless his heart, he says, Bob, I got to ask you a question. He said, would you mind if I did a 2-hour Saturday talk show on WHP? And I said, no, knock yourself out. Why are you asking me, you know? And I still don't know why you...
Well, I was respect, Bob. It was respect.
How about that?
I'm going to go on without your permission. You're like the Godfather. I mean, RJ takes the public figure, but I know who's behind the scenes.
You know, he's been campaigning to have your job now. You know that. He has been.
More power to him.
And he's going to be on, by the way, Monday. He's the first in the chute. We have quite a few different people who are going to be coming in next week and the week after. We still are putting the schedule together for the week after, but Carl's first in the chute, and we'll be asking for your feedback. Carl, thanks for coming today.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, so that was yesterday at the Bob Durgan retirement party. And so I want to tell you guys the inside line on that, right? Bob's like, my kid called me about a show. And I said, respect. Well, you have to understand, when I first got started here on the radio, it was on Bob's show. And HP comes to me, and, you know, I'm not a babe in the woods, so I'm like, Durgan know anything about this? I don't know. But I'm actually going, well, it'll be really interesting to do a show on Saturdays. And as you guys remember, in the old days, it was 1 hour. So I thought, okay, we'll do that. And then I thought, well, I really need to talk to Bob about this, because he's been the one that's put me on the radio and been so kind to me. And I can't just go behind his back and do something like that. So I remember it well, because what happened was I have a buddy, Brent, part of the Stony Valley Outfitters, that I go hunting with quite a bit. And Brent was driving a white panel van that we had taking hunting up in New York. And we're going down the turnpike, and Durgan calls because he wants to have me on the air. I think we knew Durgan was calling. That's why Brent was driving, and I'm on the Bluetooth. And Brent and I used to do that quite a bit. We'd be out hunting somewhere, and Durgan would have me on, and he'd be driving or I'd be driving. And the thing was, Brent would only get one side of the conversation, so I'd have to tell him what Durgan said or what the callers said during break. So he knew why I was saying what I was saying, because he would be on the phone, you know. But anyhow, I said to, and I remember this, I said to Art, I'm like, Art, during one of the breaks, can I talk to Bob privately about something for a minute? And I think he was laughing at me back then, too, about it. Like, yeah, whatever you want to do. Go, more power to you. But that's the inside line on that. And I always thought it was, you know, I always thought that was important to call him, to show respect to him. And I thank him a lot for letting me get on the air. But it made me tickled pink that that's what he remembered. Think about that. You know, I thought that was something important to do, and that's what he remembered. And That made me feel really good yesterday. And it was a sad event in a way because, we're losing Bob as a day-to-day radio talk show host. And obviously, I've been honored to have been part of that for so many years. So, on the other hand, you heard RJ. I'll be the first guy out of the chute Monday. And I'm going to try to do, a show like, if I had my own show, what would it sound like? Well, it'd sound like this show, probably. But I think for the 3 to 6 slot, they're looking for a non-legal show. So what would Carl Rominger's show sound like if it was a non-legal show? Tune in Monday from 3 to 6 and we'll find out. Julie, you're on the air.
Hi. I have a question about establishing an estate. My father-in-law passed away in July.
Uh-huh.
He was in a nursing home for 9 years and had a about $2,700 personal account in the nursing home.
Uh-huh.
And the nursing home said, well, we'll be issuing you a check, but it'll be to the estate of your father-in-law, and you'll have to establish an estate and go through a process. And I don't know what that process is.
To open the estate?
Yeah.
Well, if it's a small amount of money, about $2,400, you're saying?
$2,700.
It may be possible to do it by affidavit, and do it without actually opening an estate.
Okay.
If it's necessary to open an estate, you can do it as a small estate, and it's still going to be worth your while. The process is best explained like this: you have to go to the Register of Wills, get the necessary paperwork, fill it out, file the necessary tax filings, if any, et cetera, et cetera. But if you go see an attorney, that's probably the easiest way to get it done because that's something that our offices do on a routine basis.
Okay.
All right?
Well, what is the affidavit?
Well, it's an affidavit. It would be an affidavit of a small estate or no estate asking to release the funds directly to the heir. But everything's got to line up just right for that to happen.
Okay.
All right.
But that would be done through an attorney also?
Well, I mean, I'll explain it this way. There's nothing an attorney does that you can't do yourself. And why do I say that? Well, the answer is, if I go to my auto mechanic, right, he has like a wrench that he can take the sprocket off or something, right?
But he's skilled with it.
With skill with the wrench, right. But nonetheless, he has to have certain tools and parts and things, right?
Yeah.
Lawyers, it's just words. So if you're illiterate, theoretically you can do anything a lawyer can do. Lawyers don't make anything but a bunch of English words strung together, okay? But you're right. It's the skill of the stringing, and it's the familiarity. So it's like anything else. If you ever milked a cow, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first time you milk it, you're not so efficient. But by the time you're milking your 100th cow, of your lifetime, and then your 10,000th, boy, you get better and better, and pretty soon you don't even have to think about it, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're talking about here is, so you can go find the forms, and you can go find out how to fill them out, and if a clerk is helpful, they might even help you do it. Some courthouses will, some courthouses won't. A lot of them will tell you we don't give legal advice because they don't want the liability of doing it wrong and then you getting upset later.
Okay.
So my advice usually is for $2,700, are some attorneys going to charge you $500 to help you retrieve it? The answer is yes. Are you still going to be $2,200 richer? The answer is yes.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, thank you.
All right, take care.
Bye.
540-0580, answering your legal questions here on this beautiful day. Catherine, you're on the air.
Hi, Carl. Thank you for taking my call.
No, thank you.
If my husband has some assets in his name only,
mm-hmm.
and I have some assets in my name only, and I have a serious traffic accident, can the injured come after my husband's assets as well as mine?
They can only come against the ones that are titled to you.
Okay.
But if they were titled to the marriage, then they can't come after them either.
Oh, okay.
So the reason we usually tell husbands and wives to title everything jointly by the entireties with joint right of survivorship is to make it a marital asset. That way, if he had an accident, none of the marital property would be at risk. And if you had an accident, none of the marital property would be at risk. Right now, if either one of you has an accident, then theoretically some of your property is at risk.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, you take care.
Uh-huh. Bye.
Bill, you want to talk about free milk from cows?
This is Tall Bill, and I'm just calling to tell you how much we appreciate your program. And by the way, how many cows have you milked?
I don't know. Do you want to know literally how many cows have I milked?
Well, you said 100 or something. I didn't know if you'd milked 100 or not.
I wouldn't say 100, no, but oh boy, there's the old joke about the bull that goes in. This goes right in here. But no, actually, what we used to do at the barn was it wasn't a hand milker. It's like a suction pump, okay? And you hook it up to the pipe, and you hook the top of the thing. It looks like a little four-armed octopus up to the top of the can, right?
Yeah.
And you stick it right on the teat, and it goes tunk, 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 tunk. Mechanical milker.
Yeah. So
but there's a little art to put nose on the cow too. Plus, you have to get comfortable sticking your head down there, you know.
Yeah, getting hit by the tail of the cow. And knocking the milk bucket over. Hey, thanks for everything you do. Bye.
No problem. And cows are dangerous. They actually burnt down the city of Chicago. That's a fact. I'll be back after break. So I just posted to Facebook, and I'm going to post another one here after I get done Instagramming it. I'm here talking to you guys on the air, right? And my left eye, I can see Shane through the glass because he sits over there. It's bulletproof, by the way. And Shane's back there, and I see a cowboy hat. I mean, an ethereal, not a real cowboy hat. I see a silhouette of Bob Durgan floating around. And so I'm trying to answer that question. I'm thinking, I'm looking. And my eyes are trying to find what it is there's a glass on the far side and then there's glass on the back side. So Durgan was over in the WHP. I'm in the WHP studio. He's over in the River studio over there. Probably, nobody knows this, but Bob actually programs the River. So he's over there doing what he does. And I see the reflection through the glass on the glass, so it's like a hologram floating out there. So I was able to snap a photo of it with my cell phone camera and put it up. And it's Bob Durgan's silhouette, kind of still haunting the HP studio. But no, seriously, then during the break, he stopped in and said hello and reminded me he's going to be listening on Monday when I fill in for the show. Not as a threat or anyhow. I have a question from Robert on Facebook. He said, "Hi, Carl, I have a question." By the way, talk line number is 540-0580. I have a question, please. I was looking at pistols on Gunbroker the other day, and there was a gentleman in Silver Springs, Maryland, selling a model I was interested in. I cannot purchase in Maryland since I am a resident of PA. Is the Maryland man free to come to PA to transfer a pistol to me at a PA gun shop? I think he is. He didn't want to do a private sale only through a licensed FFL. If he isn't, then you guys just have to get an FFL in Maryland and an FFL in here, and that way you can get it transferred up. But any of our good gun dealers out there, 540-0580, who want to just give us a better read on how to do a transaction with a handgun from Maryland to Pennsylvania, I always love to hear what you guys have to say because you actually do it for a living. Lawyers like to talk about things. And as I explained to a client the other day how I did a horse's hoof case, I probably told this story before, where the veterinarian and I spent a few hours studying this horse's hoof, and they had a cutaway hoof, and I know all about the coffin bone and the naviculum and the white and the hoof and all the crap that gets packed in there and the coffin bone. So anyhow, I get to know all about it, right? Because I have to talk about it in court briefly. But nonetheless, I still don't know it like the veterinarian does it. So anytime you can go to the people who actually do the transactions or the work, sometimes the legal end is more self-explanatory. Then I got another question from Elisa. She just sent this here. Can I fight a traffic ticket in another county via phone? Got pulled over, and even though I paid my reinstatement fee previously, they said my license is still suspended, and they claimed I was going 90. Ooh. I wouldn't fight it by phone because of the seriousness of it. They're going to try to take your license if they're claiming you are suspended. So my thought, Elisa, would be that we would need to do something about it. Now, could we maybe arrange a plea by phone and work everything out with the officer ahead of time? Perhaps. But it sounds like he's going to give you a really hard time. And, kid in the car, too. Great. Anyhow, 540-0580 if you want to talk on the talk line here. And, of course, I wanted to remind you, I don't have any appearances right now, do I? Yeah, somebody asked me yesterday. They said, how do I get you out to talk? I was down to talk to the Adams 912 Patriots down there, and been to the Franklin. York or Cumberland, I'd be happy to be there if you guys want me. I know that Harrisburg Hunters and Anglers, I think, are going to have me back in September, but I'm not positive about that, so we need to check with them. But if you have a group and you want to talk about gun laws, Second Amendment, or just the Constitution, or just any kind of law in general, I'm happy to come out and talk with your group. All you got to do is contact me through the office or through WHP here. I will come out and hang out. We had to shut them down the other night. I would have talked. See, here's the problem. I'll just talk forever. My mom will tell you that. Maybe we'll ask her later, but I'll talk forever. I'm a filibuster, especially if the questions are good. So what happened down there in Adams County when we were at Cross Keys, those guys had some really great questions, and there's always a lot of really smart individuals floating around. I'm sure that if I went to some liberal groups, there'd be some smart guys there too. So I'm not going to say it's a liberal or conservative thing, but if you want to pigeonhole people and say, oh, they're a bunch of right-wing wing nuts or nut jobs, there certainly are a lot of right-wing nut jobs that I know, some of whom are good friends of mine. But there's also a lot of very thoughtful people who come to differing opinions and conclusions, some of which are very right-wing nutty, but nonetheless are based on solid hypotheses. So anyhow, if you want me to come out and talk to one of your groups or be with your group, I'm happy to do that. If you want to talk about the Sixth Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, if there's some area of law you want me to research, I'd be happy to do that. And why do I do those things? Well, it's a quid pro quo. I like to come out and meet people. Obviously, maybe someday you'll become a client or a listener. But I also just enjoy the interaction genuinely. I find I take as much away from those discussions, and that's how I do it. I do it as a discussion format. I always tell people, I'm not here to lecture you. I'm here to talk with you. We're equals. I have some particular knowledge. You have some particular knowledge and some experiences, and we're going to put them together and see what we can synthesize as a group. So I'm more of a facilitator than a lecturer, I like to say. So again, if you want us, just contact WHP here or contact through my law office, romingerlaw.com will get you there. And also, I think I'm going to swing over to, in fact, I know I'm going to, after the show here, I'm going to swing over to Harrisburg Beer and Cigar. So if anybody wants to stop by and talk law or guns or whatever and smoke a cigar, it's over Progress Avenue. Not Progress, I'm sorry. I always want to say Progress. It's Union Deposit. Union Deposit by the Lowe's, Harrisburg Beer and Cigar. I'll be over there. And on August 31st at 2 p.m., they're going to be having a barbecue. I should be over there for that as well. That's August 31st at 2 p.m. at Harrisburg Beer and Cigar. Yeah, join me over there. They've got a great selection of beer and cigars. I'm going to stop over after the show, see what's going on. What else is in the legal news? Well, actually, right now, Montgomery County Clerk has countersued the Department of Health, saying that he wants to be able to issue gay marriage licenses in Pennsylvania, and is pushing that issue in the Commonwealth Court. Now, nobody's asked for an injunction yet that I'm aware of, or none's been issued, so how this is going to play out, I don't know. And again, I've told you the choice of governor may become the controlling factor in this down the road, since the Attorney General has declined not to forward defense of the anti-gay marriage provisions of Pennsylvania law. That's currently an ACL lawsuit, a different lawsuit entirely. And it's interesting that the governor had the Department of Health file this rather than general counsel, which I thought was interesting, maybe just to separate himself from the result for political plausibility purposes. I don't know. But let's watch that. That'll be very interesting to see. And the United States, I think, is now going to honor visas for same-sex marriages the same way they do marriages in Pennsylvania, or say in same-sex marriage, the same as they do regular marriage, which is going to be a little bit of a shift in immigration law because of Congress or the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to knock down the Defense of Marriage Act. Diane.
Yes.
What's going on?
I am going to be traveling with my family up to Erie, and we wanted to take a day trip to Niagara Falls on the Canada side.
Yes.
And I found out that I can get into Canada with just a driver's license and birth certificates, plus for my kids just birth certificates. But to get back into the United States, I need either a passport or something I just found out about, a passport card. And I was wondering if you knew anything about applying for that. I was looking on the Internet, and I don't know what I need for my children, because my husband and I each have expired passports that we think we can use to get the passport card, because we meet the minimum or the maximum requirements. Are 15 years old right now when we traveled to England back for our honeymoon. So I wanted to find out what we need for children to get a passport card. Like, do they need
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
What I would tell you to do on Monday is talk to, you can call Department of State, or you go to the post office and get the form, or you can go to the Prothonotari's office in the counties and get the form.
Okay.
And they may know, but I can tell you this. Now, it's not a tragedy. I grew up in Western New York, okay?
Okay.
Niagara Falls, not as big a deal as you think it is, but it's I grew up there. It's like Gettysburg for people that are local down here. Point is, you can see everything you want to see almost from the American side. So it wouldn't be a complete tragedy if you couldn't get it through.
Okay.
Because the American side is beautiful. There's great views. And I can set my mom up as a tour guide.
Okay.
All right?
That would be nice.
All right. Good luck.
Okay, thank you.
See you guys in a minute. Carl Rominger signing out. Till next hour.